check his DMs on Instagram.
I tell him check his. And we live. Welcome to another episode of Drinks with a Fella.
Yo, I got back pain, and I can't laugh so hard without you today. I got back pain, man.
Yeah, like I was saying, welcome everybody to another episode of Drinks with the Fellas. This is episode 79. We here again. We currently waiting on Mr. Brison, MP Brison, but in the meantime, between time, while we waiting for him, he having some technical difficulties. All of us having some technical difficulties today, actually. But yeah, while we setting that up in the background, we going to jump into the first topic of the day.
Hold on. First and foremost, how is everybody doing? Yeah, good?
My man's tired, but what else is new?
I mean,
my boy. All right, so let me not break sign of traditions. Why are you drinking today?
Fireball.
I go in for a beer there just now because I want sign no yell at me like last week.
Good. Yes, fair rat.
I go in for a beer there just now. Man, I'm okay raising the voice, carrying up the decibels on me, boy.
Yeah. I know, fuckery. I don't want that I drink the least high. I'll be drinking like I got me looking like I drink.
Nah, man, I'm vodka today, man. I'm vodka today.
But it's about the average, the average stroke the week. You understand? The average stroke the week, I had to be up there, so Sundays I just got to reset for Monday. Check it out. Anyhow, run through the topics, whatever it was we were going to do in the meantime.
Yeah, let me drop this.
Salutations to everybody that's very, very early on the comment section. We're going to have Fellas Blessed Sunday from Charlie Coconut. Shout out to Charlie.
Bless up yourself.
I'm Kev Pack. I'm Kev Pack, I think. I'm Kev Pack. Oh, good. See you. Shout out to the comment section.
Well, like for everybody that just joining in, we're supposed to have Mr. Brison on, but we dealing with some technical difficulties here in the background. So in the meantime, while we fixing that, we're going to throw out the first topic for the day, and that would be
Black people have the worst customer service in the motherfucking world. And you can say that you don't agree with that because I don't give a fuck why. If we get our customer service better, we'll make more business. Bottom line. So you can say whatever you want.
When you go to the Chinese restaurant, they nice to you. Hey Ray, how you doing today? No, they just as mean.
Hey, I don't go to the fucking Chinese restaurant.
All right, but you know what I'm saying, Ray. Like,
I don't go.
We could yell. You're yelling. Don't make your point.
I'm speaking for Ray.
At the end of the day, Asians don't sit there and say, hey, your customer service has to be perfect. Your product has to be A1 before I support you. They support you.
So
other races support you.
So Sue.
We went through the topic and Mr. Brison here in the studio. Let's bring him on.
Okay. No problem.
Here we go.
So Brison.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us good, sir?
Very good. How you guys doing?
Not too bad. Good afternoon, good morning. And I know it's a little early still over there.
Somewhere in between. 12:07.
How you doing, MP Brison?
Yeah.
How would you like to be referred to today?
Well, I'm doing good, I must say. It's a lot of work going on now, balancing parliament and campaigning. But, I'm used to it. I've been used to always campaign since 2010 for the Up Party. And then I ran in 2018, 2020. So it's the usual rodeo, but it's tough. It's a lot of work, meeting a lot of people. The phone is ringing off the hook. As a matter of fact, I put my phone on do not disturb now. So
I could imagine. And with all that being said, we appreciate you carving. Like I said, we appreciate you carving out your time and sitting, coming through and sitting down and having this conversation with us. Because we got a lot of questions.
Sure, man. This is the best part of the job, talking to people.
All right, so then you was given a little bit of your background, your political background. How about we start with that? What led you to politics when you started? Give us a little bit of your background.
Okay, well, actually, my real passion always was tourism. I from since when I was in high school, like we just had the opening of the new tourist office, and that kind of hit me. That actually it goes back even further than that. Like from Marilla Rams used to be there where the Tommy Hilfiger building is now. That's the St.Maarten Tourist Bureau. And I remember back then, Theo Heiliger used to always come in and give you the little pencil case for the kids and stuff like that. And I remember asking the teacher, well, who that man is? He said, yeah, that's the commissioner of tourism. So already from then, I was like, this tourism thing is interesting. Then in high school, I participated in the interscholastic debates. And of course, other stuff, I was on Loud and Loving It teen times. But I always felt like tourism was an interesting thing. The concept of people working hard and putting aside money to go someplace else and basically blow, let's say, like a year's work in a week. And despite that concept not making much sense, it's somehow worth it for everybody. All of us want to take that 1 or 2 week off and go someplace and see someplace else. And even though it costs you money, you still do it. And then on top of that, it does a lot for St.Maarten. So I studied tourism. I came back. I worked at Winair. Then I had the opportunity for becoming the tourism director. I finally did. So all this time, politics was not on my mind because I always thought, you know what, I can do what I want to do for St.Maarten in that position. And becoming the department head, director of tourism, I thought that was it. I thought, okay, all the plans I got, all the things I can see for building St.Maarten into a better tourism product, yeah, man, I'm going to be able to fulfill it. That was actually my first encounter where I was like, whoa, this thing is much different. Because sometimes you're a civil servant, you make advices, but it doesn't jive with the politics. The minister don't like it, or parliament make an issue about it, or whatever. And I was like, man, I think there's still one more step up above being tourism director if you really want to do things for tourism. So all I used to do campaigning, I never thought about actually running. But especially after Hurricane Irma, I was tourism director. I saw a lot of failures in the political realm when it came to tourism at that time. I ended up just kind of defying the orders of the prime minister at the time because he said he was not willing to do interviews with CNN and all these people who were calling. And I'm like, you're hurting St.Maarten tourism product by saying nothing. So I went and did it. And I told him you can have my resignation the next day. Of course, by the time the interviews happened and it went well, he didn't accept it. So right around that time, government fell. And I said, you know what? That's a sign. If government fall while we're dealing with a crisis like this, maybe now is the time to step in. And it worked out. I got elected.
That you call some pretty big positions there, like tourism director and things like that. There's a whole lot of questions we want to ask there as well.
No problem.
But I want to kind of go with it step by step.
Sure.
I'm not too sure if you've seen the interviews that we had with some of the PFP candidates, but during those interviews, a lot of processes and the electoral process of St.Maarten was talked about, but I feel like we didn't get to the foundation of it. And we also feel like a lot of things that are missing, or one of the biggest disconnects in St.Maarten is we don't know the process. What's the difference between MP, was who's opposition, who's in government, who's what. Could he maybe give like a somewhat of a foundation level explanation of how our electoral process goes?
Yeah. So that's a very good question. And it is indeed one of the biggest deficiencies I noticed getting into politics, even campaigning, because remember, we switched from a very different system in 2010, from an island council system where you had commissioners, you didn't have a parliament. It was basically the commissioner had a portfolio and the commissioner just gets things done, to now a parliamentary system where, yes, you have ministers that are appointed from a majority in parliament, but the parliament oversees the ministers. So the way I see it is that the parliament is like a board of directors of a company, so you have shareholders, whatever, they appoint a board that oversees the overall operations of the company. And the ministers are like the CFO, the CEOs, the CTOs, the top management of the company. And then the civil servants are the people that work for the company. you know. So that's the way I think is an easy way to kind of explain it. Parliament is supposed to set the rules. That's where legislation comes into play. So just like a board of directors might do a shareholder resolution and say, listen, we don't want the company, or we want the company to cut costs by $1 billion in 2024, then it's the job of the CEO to execute that. They set the budget for the company, while Parliament sets the budget for the country. When a CEO is messing up, he gets called to a board meeting and says, hey, what's going on here? Or if the board has an idea, the CEO is called to the board and say, hey, we think we have an opportunity here that you can explore. That same thing as Parliament. You sometimes bring the ministers because you're concerned about ways things are going, but you also can call a minister to give suggestions, to tell them, listen, I think this is what you can do for GB. I think this is what you can do for this. That latter part has been lacking the most in the last 13 years. Parliament kind of just been used as a place to complain and to throw shots and at each other and that kind of nonsense. And when I came in 2018, I said, I gotta find a way to shift this, because it given St.Maarten a bad reputation. Our electoral numbers every year going down, so less people are interested in voting. And the only way you could change that is if somebody steps up and says, no, if a government is doing something good, whether I opposition or not, I can support it. So the opposition coalition thing is also very traditional. Strictly speaking, it's 15 members of parliament. But in order for a government, so the ministers, to have a position, they need a majority to say, you can be a minister. The minute a majority says, we no longer have confidence in you as a minister, or we no longer have confidence in this government as a minister, the Constitution says the ministers have to resign. And often what that results in is that the government has a countermeasure where they then dissolve the parliament and a new election is called. So that has been the game, unfortunately, for the better part of 13 years. It's started to change a little bit. I did my part to try to change it. You see some people kind of start to go in that direction, and then they go right back into the old school politics. That doesn't help anyone. And yeah, but the system is not a bad system if everybody uses their role properly, if everybody uses their powers correctly and to the full extent, not just asking questions and complaining, but bringing proposals. Because if you bring a proposal for a minister and he doesn't execute it, that's when you can bring a minister and hold him accountable. The public will, if the public likes your suggestion, then that minister will get kind of punished in the polls or in the court of public opinion. So Parliament has way more power, I think, than most people realize. That's why it's a parliamentary election, because the Parliament is who determine the ministers, the laws, and everything.
Okay, so, and then because you previously you were speaking about old school politics, right?
Yeah.
We could say, let me put it this way: you were part of the new wave, what we could call, of politicians that a lot of us had big hopes for. Now, with that being said, a lot of us still do feel though that it's pretty much the same stuff that going on, just different faces. So with that being said, let's say, let me put it frankly, what sets you aside from Theo?
I think we have some similarities in the sense that people see our focus on economy and so on. I think what Theo was always like more of an executive. He was somebody that always was a commissioner, I think for like 20 years. And then he transitioned to this parliamentary system where he wasn't the person, let's say, signing the documents or executing. And personally, I think he struggled with that over the years. That's why you saw kind of a decline in his votes, maybe in his performance. For me, I never went in with the ambition to be a minister. I knew and embraced being a parliamentarian. And what is a parliamentarian supposed to do? One, legislation. I've drafted over 21 laws. 17 of them have already passed in different areas that it kind of, let's say, it's not as politically sexy as, oh, I build a house or I fix a road, but it has lasting impact when you pass these laws and it changes your system, makes processes more efficient, or like for COVID-19, the vaccine, we know a lot of people are very skeptical about that. Well, I brought legislation to ensure that it would have been optional, a voluntary vaccine, rather than the system that the Netherlands had with, oh, you have to have a test if you want to go into a place. The reason why we had so much freedom was just because of that one little piece of legislation. And, you kind of take that for granted, that the freedom we had in St.Maarten, and so the legislative aspect is very important, but also the speaking ability in Parliament. You have a lot of people that come in and just talk in melee and this type of thing. It has an impact when you do a lot of research before you speak in Parliament for public perception. Investors, they look at these things, they listen to what's happening in Parliament. So that gives them confidence when somebody is speaking well on the floor of Parliament, talking about the economy or the social needs. So that aspect, I think I brought, I kind of raised the bar when it comes to that. And then also working across party lines was very important. That was another big problem before. You would have seen, like you said, the new wave versus the old wave of politicians. The old wave of politicians were very toxic towards one another, and any little disagreement, government fall. I've been the first person to be able to keep a government together for 4 years, and a lot of that had to do with the diplomacy factor. Because if I was, let's say, had a hardline coalition, opposition type of stance, when I had members for their own, let's say, selfish reasons wanted to leave and cause the government to fall, because I had already built a relationship with some opposition members, I already knew the government was not going to fall, because there are opposition members that looking at this government and looking at my performance and saying, listen, bro, if anything happened, I got your back. We're going to support the government. We don't want nothing. We just want to be a part of what you're doing. And that would never happen before 2020, because the minute a parliamentarian on the coalition side, so let me explain that quick. So let's say it's 8 in a majority, that's the coalition, 7 is opposition as the traditional term. Let's say one person of that 8 no longer has confidence in the government. Normally, in most parliamentary systems, that doesn't mean government fall. That happened in Holland many times, where somebody left. What you tend to do as a leader is you look now in the opposition aisles and say, listen, this person has an issue, but we would like you to support the coalition. Let's talk. What do you want to see? And then you get an immediate shift back and the government doesn't fall. In St.Maarten, all the time, when now one person had an issue, government fall, because the opposition is so, like, it's such a big line. Like, they don't want nothing to do with the coalition. Coalition don't support nothing from the opposition. So now it's like, yeah, good for you. Your government fall. We go in elections. We don't care what it's do to the people, and we're not supporting you. That has been a big difference. The 4 years to me is the clearest example that we have new politics going on in St.Maarten, because I estimate that this government we probably had 3 elections by now instead of 1.
That has been the trend, and I must say that is is a little sad to say. That is a good thing that we've had a full government for 4 years, because that indicates that it's such a low bar, because that really shouldn't be the case. But it is a good thing, and it is progress to one how to say it, in one aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But you were talking about some of the legislation that you brought forward. Can you explain some of the other ones that aren't necessarily COVID related that you brought forward?
Well, my first initiative law was it's known as the UTS law, because there was a situation in Parliament, and mind you, this is a good example because I was in opposition, but the coalition and the country was having a struggle where the police were threatening to go on strike if they didn't get the money that they were owed from many years ago. I looked at the situation and I realized, listen, we need to find a creative solution to find this money now, else all of us in St.Maarten are basically screwed. So I went through the budget. I started to look at the different assets that we have. And then I came across St.Maarten owns 20% of UTS. I went back in the books. I found out, but we've never made a single cent on UTS. Furthermore, there's a buyer, Liberty, which is now Flow. Everybody saw UTS change to Flow, was interested in buying for many years. And then I saw in the archives their letters coming in saying we would like to buy, but their problem was is that they didn't want to just buy Curacao 80% and then have a partner in St.Maarten of government. They wanted the full amount. Nobody replied to these people. They just basically had them there hanging. So I took it on and I say, listen, this is a great deal. We can make $22 million as a country for an asset that gives us absolutely nothing because we were not being paid dividends. We didn't get profit sharing, nothing. So, and then you solve the situation to pay your police and other expenses. This is right after Hurricane Irma. So we were in dire financial straits. Mm-hmm. The thing is, in order to sell shares, this was the first time in the history of the country we were selling shares of a company, we had to change certain laws. And the government couldn't agree. So the ministers themselves, let me say, couldn't come to an agreement on how to do it. And I got tired of the nonsense. I was like, y'all here bickering, and when the police strike on us, you're going to have a problem. I say, you know what? I'm going to come with a solution in Parliament as a law and let Parliament decide. Since the government can't decide, Parliament, you vote for this or not. But I predicted that there's no way, even though I'm an opposition member, that how are those parliamentarians going to look in the faces of the police and the public and vote against my law? Politically, it would be political suicide. So I drafted the law. The law was debated in Parliament. It passed unanimously. The police got, for the first time, their retroactive payments. Since then, a lot of my focus has been on amendments to the budget. I've presented 6 as another very important legislation, mostly focused on tourism investments. I think I brought in about $26 million in additional funds for tourism. I brought an ordinance related to VROMI to speed up the process. Another amendment related to the sharing of tax information, because there was an issue where St.Maarteners who had a business partner that was American, based on the way our law was written, that local person would have to be in compliance with the U.S. tax laws as well. And it was ruining opportunities from locals who wanted to partner with Americans, because it was just too much red tape, too much information, and the minister would have to sign off on sharing that information. So I saw locals losing opportunities to get in business. As a matter of fact, there was the owner of a nightclub that pointed this out to me. He had an investor ready to go, and he was like, yo, I can't do this. So seeing that this was losing opportunities, I did a draft to change the tax law so that it's only the individual American that has to send the money to America, and it doesn't affect locals. What else we have? I did an amendment. This one might be interested for the ones who are studying in Holland. I did an amendment to the tax law where if you graduate, if you're someone that's from St.Maarten, you then study abroad. In the first 5 years after you graduate, you pay 50% of the tax rate. So let's say normally you come back home, you get a salary, it look good. Oh, $4,000, that sounds good. But what actually happens, you end up maybe taking home like $2,000. Mm-hmm. So that turns off a lot of locals from coming back home. So what I did is I said, look, we shouldn't worry about collecting taxes from people that return. Our priority would be get them to return. So get them on low tax rates instead of like a 40% tax rate. They're down to like 10%. So instead of collecting just $2,000 from that $4,000, now you would collect $3,200 from that $4,000. Mm-hmm. So that should be something to attract a lot more people to come back home. And it even also gives you a 500 guilder, maximum 500 guilders, not much, but it can go towards helping you with your rent. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's 17 of them. I could give you some more, but I don't know how if you want me to spend the next hour.
No, man, because we still got a lot of questions. But
of course,
you also mentioned making it more attractive to come down.
Yeah,
and this is for the students to come back to St.Maarten. And this is something I myself have been struggling with for the past 5-7 years, and even to the point where other people would ask my opinion and be like, yeah, Baishan, I'm thinking about doing this in St.Maarten, or thinking about going down to do that. And my first response to them would be no, don't do it. What reason can you give us young ones and the ones who coming up behind us, a reason to come back down to St.Maarten? Because all of us who have our education, either getting told we overqualified, or we have to settle for less than quote unquote somebody, a foreigner, or somebody who has no roots in St.Maarten. What reason do we have to come back?
Yeah, well, I think there's three things. When I was drafting the law, I did some surveys in the Netherlands to get information on what are the main things that stop, especially our students in the Netherlands, from coming back. And the three things that came up in the surveys is one, money. So is it the same function in the Netherlands, you would get paid more here after taxes. So that's why I brought that tax law. The second issue is indeed finding the job. And that is something that what we have to do is a couple things. We have amended the labor laws so that now all of the people, so everyone that's on scholarship or anyone that graduates, the education department is now reaching out to them and creating a database. So before we give a work permit, now there's an opportunity to check within the department to see if there is a qualified local willing to return instead for that position, because that's the thing that happens often as well. There's a lot of jobs going on out here. A lot of you just don't hear about it. You just get a small ad in the newspaper goes out saying, I need a marketing manager. The salary is $5,000 a month, because then the person just needs to do that to qualify for the work permit. No one sees that. No one, let's say, graduated has seen that, because you guys in the Netherlands, you're not going to go and look in the Daily Herald every day. So we needed a better way to make sure that you all know that these positions are available so that you can apply, email your application and so on. Because by law now, if that person does get an application from someone like yourself, they have to at least interview you and make an effort to hire you before we give them that work permit. That connection has been missing. Because I can tell you, there's a lot of jobs going on out there. We had a job fair the other day. That's another effort that we're doing to make sure connect the businesses with the locals. And we had over about 300-400 job openings available. I hear half of them have already been filled. As a matter of fact, at the job fair itself, like 40-50 people got hired on the spot. I think the government had, before us, didn't do enough to connect the labor market with the businesses. And oftentimes businesses have a kind of thing where they're like, boy, I really want that guy from Singapore to come and run my company. So yeah, they're thinking that they kind of have a bias towards that person. But when they get to see the especially our young professionals in action, they get to interview them, they actually change their mind and they end up happy with the person. But there's a perception that a lot of business people have when they come here that, oh, St.Maarten's so small, or we don't have a big university, so there's not many people that's educated. So I already come in with a mindset here that I need to bring foreign labor in order for my investment to be fruitful. No, we have to show them that there is a database of qualified locals, hardworking, with experience in the Netherlands or the US and so on, that are ready to work. And oftentimes, those investors, once they find a qualified person, they're happy to keep them. It's much more expensive to bring in foreign labor. You got to pay the work permit fees. You got to pay this. You got to house them. You got to get them a car. Whereas if you bring in somebody else, oftentimes you can negotiate a better deal with them, because the fact is you might be already living in St.Maarten. You might have your own apartment. It's a lot cheaper because I don't have to pay work permit fees and other taxes for you. So yeah, the perception that businesses don't want higher, especially the high level positions for locals, I don't think is completely true. I don't think until Minister Otley came in and we started pushing that connection, that attitude has changed a lot. I forgot to mention the third thing which came up in the survey that was very surprising is that there was also a kind of a lack of patriotism as a factor. So some people kind of felt like they give up on St.Maarten. Like they feel like, why I gonna bring my skills over there for, is it going to be used? St.Maarten very toxic, a lot of haters, a lot of people that are gonna be like, you think you know it all. So there's a perception in the surveys that showed up that I have a better chance being a nobody in Holland, where I'm just a number. Whereas in St.Maarten, you know how it can be. People looking at you, oh, look at you, Sean, you get a nice position, but yeah, you think you know it all now? That perception actually exists amongst people, and it showed up in the surveys. So I think that's much more of a personal thing, a cultural thing that we have to work on as a people.
That is
crab in the bucket mentality.
That is interesting. But that's one of the things that legit, how to say, turning off a lot of us from coming back down.
Yeah,
Is that
it's not spoken about enough. That's why I say it was surprising to see it in the surveys. And when we did focus groups and talked to them, they started to explain that, like, yo, I came down to St. Maarten, I had an idea for doing this business. I talked to one of my partners. He like, boy, I don't think that could work. 2 weeks later, I see him make a Facebook page for the same exact thing I was gonna do.
Yeah.
You know, that type of attitude turns people off from coming to St. Maarten. And I'm not sure what much government can do with that. I think that's something we have to mature about as a society, that there's enough in St. Maarten for everybody. Not everybody just got to be copying each other or hating on each other. We should champion each other's success and be happy for each other. And I think with this generation, I think it's a little bit more that way. And especially the next generation coming up, Generation Z, are much more in tune with doing collective ideas, you know, and sharing. They literally share things to each other through social media. So sharing has become a much more common thing in that generation. So I think it can get better.
It definitely can. And with that being said, you were talking about that you feel like they do have a lot of jobs, Mr. Master is concerned and stuff like that, and they are being pushed. But then my next question would be, what is there a plan, or correct me if I wrong if I'm wrong? I have not seen something that is pushing the arts or sports. For example, we, just like how you say, we have very capable business people all over the place, but we have the same with talent. We have from the King James to the Biancas to the Colors, Gilda, and that not even with just going out. We got people that training football in China. We got legit dope St. people doing things
Yeah.
all over the world that's not just business or that's not just tourism. Where are the programs that highlights those activities or those people as well?
Yeah. So one of the things we just did, and let me step back a bit. What I had noticed, what that lacks a lot, is that the government apparatus, the way it's set up, it's too bureaucratic to properly promote those type of businesses. What I mean is, let's say somebody wants to travel to a Queen show, and they just need a little 2,000, 3,000 guilders. They have to go through a whole rigmarole and this letter, and then it goes from culture to finance to this to that to that. The structure doesn't work for it. So there was a company that had existed under the Ministry of TIAT before, and it just became inactive. It's called the Economic Development Corporation. And I said, you know what? That's a better vehicle for promoting all of the orange economy and creative industries with the support of government, but with much better processes. So if somebody wants grants, somebody wants sponsorships, somebody is looking to establish a business in that sector, all of those different things now are going to go through the Economic Development Corporation. They're actually busy right now putting a board together that are going to be able to evaluate different people's plans. The Economic Development Corporation is also the vehicle that attracts investors. So for example, they're discussing with the JW Marriott that's coming to St. Maarten. One of the things the EDC would do is say, hey, if you're looking for entertainment, are you looking for artists to paint, put paintings in your rooms? And they become the connection to the investors and the creative industries to make sure that those opportunities are there. Because again, investors, we kind of take it for granted because we know St. Maarten, that an investor that come in here, they're just looking at the big numbers. You know, they're looking at, let's say, what's the tax rate, how many tourists come here, and so on. They don't have a good handle on things like what you mentioned. What is the level of creative industries and entertainment and so on. So it's our role, and when I say our, the whole government apparatus from parliament right down, we are the ones that's supposed to inform the investors that, hey, you don't need to bring just these, let's say, foreign artists and so on, or bring these expensive paintings from abroad and bring them to St. Maarten. Imagine how much more beautiful it would be somebody is in a JW Marriott room and there's a painting from Ruby Butte there instead of some painting that's maybe even more expensive, someone in Miami Art Basel. So that's what we have to do. We really need to connect the availability of the industry to the investors and the community.
Okay. And then you were talking a lot about some of the economic drivers and just having the money available. one of the questions we have is like there's a lot of different talks about cryptocurrency and all that kind of stuff, but then at the same time, it doesn't make sense, for example, St.Maarten to talk about cryptocurrency. We don't get it
Mhm.
if we can't even facilitate something like PayPal. PayPal can't even be used in St.Maarten. There has to be a workaround, and a lot of these other financial institutes, we have to have a workaround to be able to use them. Is there something in place for government to fix that later on?
Yes. So it's good that you bring up PayPal. This is one of the questions I got coming into it, and there's a lot of factors that factored into making it difficult for PayPal to be here. One of it was the economic factor. Um, it's a strange thing with companies, these big companies. They don't understand St.Maarten. When they see St.Maarten and they Google it or they research it, they first of all think that it's a part of the Netherlands, like directly. So a lot of them feel, PayPal included, Uber, all of these different services, that if they are established in the Netherlands, then it's up to the country of the Netherlands to, or the kingdom of the Netherlands to establish the parameters for them to set up. But the Netherlands says correctly, no, these are countries within the kingdom, so we are the ones as the country that's supposed to do it. And when I mean do it, one of the things that we've done, a legislation actually is on its way to Parliament right now, again, legislation to solve these type of things, is that we never had a payment services legislation. We just have a banking legislation. So technically, if PayPal wants to establish here, they would probably have to go for a full banking license, which is way beyond what they do. It's too much of a process, and they would never be interested in that. But if we create a Payment Services Act, and in that law, it would have the difference between a bank and an online payment service, which would be a much easier process. So PayPal, just fill in this form, he'll come by Ministry of TIAT, or we'll email you your license, you can establish. Because remember, with all of the anti-money laundering rules internationally, these companies have to be very careful that they are following all the legal steps, both locally and internationally. And if they start to feel like, you know what, St.Maarten ain't really got their AML laws and proper payment services laws in place, we are not going to bother taking the risk to establish there, and then maybe someone uses our services for the wrong reason, and then we look back, especially when in their eyes, the economic benefit is very small. Because even if you take the entire throughput of money that passes through St.Maarten, which is 13 billion, sounds like a lot, but in the eyes of PayPal, that's maybe a day in Miami. So that law will probably help a lot, because at that point we can now engage with PayPal and say, look, we've checked all the boxes, we have everything in place for you to properly set up in St.Maarten. And also what we have to do, we have to show them the economic benefit from not looking at our population. Because when they see St.Maarten, they see 60,000 people, it's like, that's a waste of time. Why establish there? Once they see the fact that many tourists come here, we have a lot of foreign investment that would make use of it. We have local entrepreneurs that want to use it. You have to present a good case to show them that it is worth it to set up in St.Maarten, and it is safe from a legislative and anti-money laundering perspective to set up in St.Maarten. So I would predict that this law here is at the Council of Advice now. I think by January, February, we'll probably be handling that law. And I think soon after that, we'll start to see these type of payment services set up in St.Maarten.
By when you had said?
I think by February next year. So that's the legislation. Then after that is the step where, especially the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Economy, they would have to be the ones to say, okay, PayPal, we good to go. Come down here and let's show you how you can get your payment services license.
Okay, so that means we, as a country, we still have to set up those laws and legislation properly first before we could even invite them to come down.
That's right, because Aruba, for example, people point to Aruba. Oh, Aruba has PayPal. Aruba has had a parliament since 1986. So they have consistently kept updating their laws and have grown accustomed to the importance of legislation, whereas St.Maarten, like I said, only till recently you have MPs not only drafting legislation, but informing the government, you need to bring this law, you need to bring these laws. As a parliament, we pass way too little laws. I mean, when you look at other countries, they are constantly updating their laws because the world is changing. When there's a terrorist attack like 9/11, everybody had to update their laws in order to conform to the new standards of terrorism. What St.Maarten do? We didn't update our laws, and guess what happened? We got downgraded to Category 2. Now local airlines can't fly into the US. So whereas other countries, they know the importance of that, they jump on the legislation right away. I think the instability hurt that a lot because now when the government fall, all legislation stops. A new minister come in, he think, no, I don't like that legislation because that's from that other political party, so me ain't doing that. That type of political immaturity was always there, and it really put us behind in terms of laws. And the PayPal, I think, is a very good example of how that actually hurts us.
But not they we have a comment there that is a good one as well. Not only the PayPal, but for example, location services. We go down to our websites and they only have cursor, but they even have Gmail, but you don't see St.Maarten on no drop down menu, nothing like that. What processes are in
They
place?
even have French side.
Even French St.Maarten, but they don't have Dutch St.Maarten. Why is that? How did that happen? And what can we do, or what can government do to change that?
Yeah. So the idea was when we became a country 2010, we set up we were supposed to set up what was called the Bureau of Telecommunication and Post. And one of their tasks would have been that. Now we rushed to go into this new country status and we didn't properly set up this entity. There's been a lot of problems in that entity since then. And they have not focused properly, in my opinion, on doing that. They always tell us that there's this international kind of data book where countries put their information in there and then companies can just pull it down, but that's not enough. I think they need to literally have a reporting system for our locals where you can report that, for example, I did it. I was really pissed off that PlayStation, I want to play my PlayStation, St.Maarten wasn't on the list. So I started to question, not just as an MP, but as a person, as a citizen, like, hey, why can't I just have an account on the PlayStation Store? When I started to check with Sony, they're like, oh, St.Maarten, what's that? I said, did you check in the registration system? Yeah, it's there, but I think someone should communicate with us to get it set up. And that's when the BTP and the Minister of Telecommunications started prompting to try and fix that issue. It needs to be done manually. You're a new country. Even if you get 10 websites a day reported, how hard is it for somebody within the BTP to call that website, contact them, email them, explain them everything, and don't stop until that is in the drop-down menu. But unfortunately, it's like some people just don't feel it's a priority, and we have that issue sometimes within the civil service or more so within government-owned companies. I feel like we let them kind of run themselves way too much. It's the one thing, if I would reflect on over the last 4 years, that I really feel we should have done better. And if I go in any government that I'm a part of going forward, I want to clamp down on these government-owned entities and make sure that they know you ain't just a private company. You work indirectly for the people, and these are the things we want done, and the minister needs to be directly in charge.
But then in what way can we actually hold people accountable for that, especially if it's government-owned entities?
Well, the normal way is the way on paper, as it is right now, is you have a CEO of a company. They have a board that's appointed by the company, and that board is the one that's supposed to be the middle person between the government, so the entire council of ministers, and the CEO. There's a few problems over the years that happened. First of all, a lot of the people that are appointed to these boards are politically appointed by ministers. Those governments have since fell, and those people are still there. Sometimes those board members can be very obstructionist. And then on top of that, the current system we have now is really unpractical. So we have 22 government-owned entities. And right now, to call a shareholder meeting with the board, you need the entire council of ministers to be in that one meeting, just to fix one little thing. So imagine if you wanted to have 4 meetings a year, it would mean that the entire council of ministers have to stop what they're doing about 2 to 3 times a week to sit down in a 3-4 hour board meeting. It doesn't work. What we have to do is say, okay, the minister of Rummy you in charge of GB. Minister Tia, you in charge of the airport. Minister of Finance, you in charge of APS. And split the portfolios, but then you put some limitations that for certain decisions, let's say it's a very serious financial decision, they have to report back to the COM. But the ministers need to have direct oversight on these companies, because using this example about the drop-down menus and location services, a minister should be able to have direct communication with the board and the CEO to say, listen, I want this thing fixed within a month. I want a reporting system set up. But right now that doesn't happen. And then it becomes very inefficient. And the companies like that, because then there's very little government oversight. They can just basically just do what they
Do what
want.
they want. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then going along with the economic side, a less of a sexy question, but is something that those of us who born in the 90s, our parents more getting of age. So when it comes to more of the pension side, let me get, yeah. So there are a lot of people that will retire with no pension and no income. Obviously, we know government can't help everyone. But what do we have any process? Is there any processes in place to help those people who are about to go on retirement?
Yeah. So it's one of the things we worked on really hard, in terms of making sure we can do more for our seniors in the country within pension, the services they get, whatever perks we can offer. And one of the key central things was the AOV pension, which is considered the social pension. It should be like your minimum, that if you didn't have any other pensions that you were part of during your life, that this is actually something at a minimum that you can receive. Well, we did two things with that, because it had two problems. One, of course, it was way too low. I think it was at one point as low as 900 guilders. Since then, we've raised it to 1,400 guilders a month, so it's quite an increase. But on top of that, we've also clarified that income tax, if that is your pension, it is not taxable. So that was also causing an issue in the past, where people were reporting income tax on it and having to even get less pension than what they were getting before. So that's two things that we did with the pension. But there's other things that we try to do. Overall, St.Maarten just needs to upgrade ourselves when it comes to how we take care of our seniors. One of the things that we're working on as a legislation is accessibility. You know, we study in the Holland. We know how it is over there, where someone with a wheelchair, there's probably no place in Holland somebody with a wheelchair or a mobile unit can't get to. In St.Maarten, you can't say the same. We've never upgraded that. Even our sidewalks sometimes don't have the ramp for people to get up on the sidewalks. So one of the things for that is to make it law that businesses have to have some sort of accessibility for seniors. Also, you know, it's like a unwritten rule, but I think it should be a written rule that there should be senior lines. That's also something that's common around the world, to allow them to be able to pass through easier. Public transportation, I think, should be, if not free, at a deeply discounted rate for seniors, because it's one thing if you can give them increased money, but the perks can add up to even more than that. So that's something that we've already started on. There's also a project to kind of give every senior sort of a life alert, where there's a button that's always on their hand, that if anything happens without a cellular phone or anything, they're able to communicate with someone if there's an emergency or if they need assistance for anything. That's something that will be provided free of charge. And then upgrading the overall healthcare system, getting the new hospital, the new general health insurance that was just presented to Parliament. These are all the things that add up to make it better for our seniors. Price control, that's also something that we've done. We expanded the basket of goods from, I think, like 17 items to 71 items. So those prices are now capped, which that benefits everyone, but it especially benefits our seniors. And last but not least, the proper attention to senior care in terms of, let's say, the senior home and so on, needs to be drastically expanded. Right now, the waiting list at the White and Yellow Cross, no fault of their own, but it's ridiculous. It's very hard to get a spot there. And on top of that, it's also difficult for care providers. I was meeting actually with a young man in the Netherlands who, him and his wife, they are in that business in Holland. And the process to be able to just set up such a business here, it's really ridiculous. You're treating, let's say, the same process you have to go through to open a hospital, it would be the same process you would have to go through to create a proper senior care facility, which I can understand that you don't want just anybody setting it up, but the process is way too long and way too difficult and costs too much. So it makes it very unattractive for private institutions to set up care facilities.
But not only
So-
that, it's something that we need. And if you could correct me if I'm wrong, MP, but we also have that when it comes to the psychologists.
Yeah, big time. You see, a lot of the healthcare issues, and I know I'm gonna sound like I'm repeating myself, but it is really just the truth. Our legislative system sucks, guys. What happened is we rushed into becoming a country from the Netherlands Antilles. A lot of our laws, when you open the law, you would see references to Island Council and Netherlands Antilles still in it, because they literally just copy pasted laws and put them together, things that don't apply. And then we also did that with the Netherlands too. We took, for example, it's called the BIG, the BIG legislation for registering doctors. In the rush of not properly planning out being able to get doctors and healthcare professionals in St.Maarten, we just say, oh, the Dutch system good, let's just take that. The problem is now, for someone, let's say from Colombia or the US or from the University of the West Indies to come here and practice as a doctor, they would literally have to go through a whole Dutch exam and certification process that can sometimes cost $20,000, $30,000 and take over a year in order to practice medicine in St.Maarten. So we're not able to attract the proper people that we should. But the irony with that is that if someone gets sick here and we send them abroad, we will send them to that same doctor that have a hard time and no, he's not good enough to work in St.Maarten, but he's good enough to take care of the most critical patients. Because when you send someone away, that means they're in critical condition or it's something very urgent. And again, what's the bottleneck? The logic doesn't make sense, but the legislation forces it because we can't go against the law. And these are things that we had to upgrade. We had to really focus on fixing these laws. Like I say, it's not the sexy, prettiest thing that's going to get you highlights in the newspaper, but we shouldn't practice politics just for that. Even if legislation ain't seen as the vote getting thing, it was the most important thing for helping our people. This affects our healthcare and our seniors big time. These laws, most of them date back to 1960 and 1968 and all kind of craziness.
But that's part of my question as well. And I'm not gonna put this on the younger ones solely, but for those ones who we call the dinosaurs there in politics, all these problems are okay. Some of them are modern day issues, but some of these things have been going on since donkey years, dinosaurs years. Why? How have these not been addressed after when they are critical, crucial points to developing the island? It's not to say we have the population or we have the numbers where we could be picky with these kind of things. How are we still moving on as a society with laws from the 1920s?
Yeah, it's that's the part in politics.
And they getting old now too, so they don't feel it.
Yeah,
exactly. Something like how to say elderly care is something they're going to have to deal with now.
yeah. A lot of them probably feel like, some of these old politicians, let me tell you what goes on when they retire. Because let's say they were in the Netherlands Antilles Parliament, the Island Council, the Executive Council, maybe they were a minister in the Netherlands Antilles, they were a member of Parliament, and they were a minister in St.Maarten. Guys, that's 6 pensions they're going home with when they're done it.
Wait, what?
6 pensions. They get an individual pension of some form or the other for all of those things. Some of them are already collecting it. So those like dinosaurs you talk about, that's what frustrates me on an emotional level, and I try not to deliver that in Parliament because I keep myself at a certain standard of speaking. But guys, I'll tell you honestly, when I hear some of them talking about, oh yeah, and this minister ain't doing that, and this MP ain't doing that, I just be looking across like, but the hell have you done for the last 30 years? We wouldn't have to be fixing this nonsense if you guys actually did your job. And then today they want to still be running and we bringing back the good old ways. And I'm like, what good old ways? Good for you, maybe. It ain't good for our generation. And it's a big frustration, the hypocrisy. Look, I make mistakes. Ministers, we make mistakes. We gonna hit or miss sometimes because That's the nature of politics. We try a thing, but that wasn't good. And next time we need to fix this. But we also work as a team, the parliamentarians and the ministers, to keep each other in check. That's fine. But when you're hearing a Sarah Westcott Williams coming to talk about the government education system, but you designed the education system, literally, as Commissioner of Education, this whole foundation-based education thing that's a total failure for St.Maarten, you created it. Now today you want to come and say, oh, well, why the teachers can't get paid properly, and why they ain't got no air codes in the school, and why? Well, you created the stupid foundation-based subsidy nonsense that makes it so difficult for government to simply say, hey, look some money, go buy some air codes. No, because the ordinance says that you have to, on the August of the year, you have to submit your budget. And if you didn't put air codes in there for school, guess what? You got to wait till next year. And they created much of the mess that we deal with today. Mullet Bay, closed for 30 years. Damn. The education system, damn. The tax system, the TOT was supposed to be a temporary tax. 20 years later, we still got it. But today, the TOT is so high, and why this government doesn't do something about the TOT? You know what? You're right. We're going to fix it, but I'm going to remind the public that it's you who bring it there in the first place. That's the biggest frustration of being a young politician, is almost like you're being baited to say it. But on a podcast like this, I'm going to just keep it real. These people have failed miserably over the years, and we are busy cleaning up their mess.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned something. You mentioned the old heads, basically the young ones here trying to clean up the mess that the old heads make. One of the questions that I posed that I brought up in the group chat that we had drinks with the fellas have is some of the concerns that a lot of our locals have, and we're wondering why it is we still operating with guildas when what's the purpose of us really, all the paychecks, everything, all the accounts in the banks are in guildas, the paychecks are in guildas, but we pay everything in dollars, especially since we import a lot of stuff internationally from the US, which operates in dollars. So what's the reason why we still operate in guildas actually?
So I could give you the logic the central bank tries to use first, so you get the technical answer, and I'll give you my real opinion. Okay. So the central bank, we always had a guilder that was pegged to the dollar, right? Since the Netherlands until these days. When we became 10-10-10, they said, no, this is a good system because you can control, let's say a disaster happens and you need to inject guilders into your economy. You have that. Maybe if you don't have access to enough dollars, let's say there's a war or something and dollars ain't coming into your country, you still have guilders that you can use. All of that, in my opinion, those arguments that the central bank uses is absolute nonsense. I think what really went on is that the central bank hires some very powerful people. They're people primarily based in Curacao, and they wanted to keep a job. Because if we dollarize the economy, you basically can bring the central bank down to like 10% of the current workforce, so they more focus on like monetary policy and advising the government and so on. Panama has done it and has had great success. They use the dollar officially. And I've always been a proponent of saying, yes, you need to dollarize St.Maarten because there's a lot of benefits you get from that. If you dollarize the economy, you could sit with the Federal Reserve in the US and say, hey, listen, man, we're tired of this Gilda thing. We want to sit with you and ask you to float a bond in our name. So China and others will buy into that bond. And I would like to ask you to put that within our new St.Maarten Central Bank. So the same argument that's being used that, we have Gilda reserves. Well, guess what? We have dollars reserves back from the Federal Reserve. Why would they do it? Well, St.Maarten is very strategic. We don't realize our political power geopolitically, where the US would love to have a foothold within a Dutch country at the northeasternmost point of the Caribbean. Financially, it would be a benefit to them, and $500 million or $1 billion is nothing. So they would inject enough money for us to safely be able to dollarize our economy. I've had those discussions before with the State Department and Federal Reserve, so to gauge the interest, and it's there. But again, you have these old power structures that want to remain the power. It could also be the Dutch government, maybe lack of trust in our own ability to manage a federal, our own reserve. Maybe that's another reason why they felt like, no, the Netherlands and Antilles really screwed up with monetary policy before. We want to have a joint central bank so that Curacao and St. Maarten can kind of keep each other in check. But it doesn't make much sense. I can't tell you the last time I've actually spent a guilder. My salary comes in guilders, and I take the 1% hit, and because it's just way more convenient to spend dollars. That was another advantage that they mentioned, is that because of the 1% license fee. So if you have guilders and you convert those to dollars, you typically lose 1%. Yeah, you can make up for that in a dollarized economy with the benefits outweigh the pros outweigh the cons. So again, an old system, old legislation that needs to be changed, and is one of the things in our manifesto that we want to change.
Do you see it happening anytime soon?
I'll be honest with you, no. I think that's a process that takes between 4 to 8 years. Reason why is that first you have to get your whole legislation drafted. That alone can take 2 to 3 years. Then you need a transition period, because there's a lot of people that have guilders, that it has a value. So you have to now change your currency. You have to negotiate internationally, especially like I mentioned, the Federal Reserve, the IMF, and so on. It can be done. It just takes some time, but it would be worth it, because that's a decision that you take for the next 20 to 50 years for your country. So if it takes 4 years at a minimum, 8 years at a maximum, it's worth it to start now.
It sounds like, without exaggerating, 60% of St. Maarten problems can be solved with proper legislation. Again,
Bingo.
what?
Yes.
What? Why has it been? Obviously, you wouldn't be able to fully answer this question, but what inkling do you have? What is the reason why this is still the way it is? Is it because mostly that it's probably benefiting a few, while the rest, like the typical Western and growing and established economies, or is it just the fact that nothing actually is able to stick because we constantly have a new people coming in, and like you said before, we have this immature political mentality of, if this person started, regardless if it's something good for the islands or not, I'm not going to back it because it wasn't me. That ain't my idea. What going on?
Well, the good news is it's what was going on. What you just described there was how St. Maarten was functioning. I think we and at least our political party have done its part to change that. The proof is in the pudding. We did last 4 years. So now in those 4 years, you could see a new general health insurance, a new law for banking, to make banks give mandatory bank accounts within 5 days. These type of things. I campaigned on this in 2020, and only now the laws come to Parliament. That's to show you how long the legislative trajectory is. But best believe, if I campaigned on something in 2020 and in 2022 the government fall and a new party comes in, that banking legislation dead, because they're gonna look at it as, yeah, but now Rolando was the one championing this thing for the banks. Me doing that because he's gonna get the credit. That level of immature politics basically stagnates us legislatively for about 10 years. So in the last 4 years, we actually did the opposite. We looked at some legislation that was packed up for a long time. For example, even one from Westcott Williams that was for the plastic bags, putting a ban on plastic bags. We passed that legislation in Parliament. It just going through the execution process. There was a timeshare legislation that was also stuck from Westcott Williams. We adjusted it now to actually put it into a hotel and timeshare legislation. So we've looked at other people's stuff and supported it, because at the end of the day, I don't see it as a Westcott Williams or this one or that one law. It's a law that's good for St. Maarten. If it's good for St. Maarten, it's good for me. So I think the bad news is that what was going on. But the good news is that it changed. I think in the election now, what would be important is that people vote for the people who do the work. And what that will cause is that it will also shift the politicians to know, if you don't get no work done, if you don't have any tangible accomplishments in Parliament or as a minister, we ain't voting for you no more. So when the new set of parliamentarians and ministers come in, hopefully their own selfish desire to get votes, if at least that can be the motivator, that now you're going to see more people like, okay, I bring in laws too, and I doing this. I must say, like in the campaign trail, this is the most I've heard people talking about legislation. And that's good. Well, whatever political party it is, I hear them talking about, okay, when I'm elected, I want to bring a law for this, I want to bring a law for that. That's good. So it shows that people realize what I've been doing maybe going to get me a bunch of votes. So if that's their motivation, well, so be it, but at least St.Maarten wins. Your motivation should be, you know what, we need to help St.Maarten and get it out of this nonsense. But nonetheless, hey, the end result matters. If more people come into parliament and take legislation more serious, then that's good for St.Maarten.
I was going to say, again, at this point, we almost going to take wherever we could get. Which also is kind of what led us in this situation in the first place. We just take in every Tom, Dick, and Harry and put it in parliament. Yes, I know.
I got another question. Me and I have very frequent conversations with some of the fellas at work almost every day, and there was a debate whether or not us operating in Gillis is contributing to our difficulty with the cost of living in St.Maarten. Is there a correlation between the two?
Yes, because what happens is, like I mentioned, first of all, almost everyone officially you're supposed to get your salary in guilders, and you lose 1% off the bat. So if you're supposed to be taking home 5,000 guilders, well, 50 guilders gone. That's a week of gas or something like that. On top of that, the guilder is pegged to the dollar. So that means that 1.8 guilders will always be equal to $1 on paper, but an employer will look at the guilder salary and look at it as high. You know, psychologically, it has a that, 4,000 guilders, that's about $2,200, but it's still 4,000 that you're getting, that is a psychological part of it as well. And then also, some businesses don't respect the exchange rate. You will go in a business and have 100 guilders, and somebody gonna tell you, that's $50.
That's 50. Yeah.
You understand? You lose $5 right there. That's a 10% tax on top of you.
Yeah.
So there's those little things that when they add up, having a guilder economy makes it harder. If you had a dollarized economy where it is straight up, your salary is in dollars, the groceries is in dollars, some people fear that the cost of goods would go up. And I say no, because what we're importing at is at dollars anyway. And we've put the price control where there's a fixed margin. You're allowed to make only 20% on a bag of rice, for example. So whether that's in guilders or dollars, their margin is fixed. So dollarizing the economy is not going to have the effect that, let's say, it had in Sabre, where Sabre was actually, as a small economy, making use of the guilder. That was a drastic change for them. I think if Curacao was to dollarize, they too would feel a drastic effect because the people actually spend the guilder. But St.Maarten is a de facto dollarized economy. So you're not going to feel an effect of a switch where somebody used to pull out a 10 guilder and now they have to pull out a $10. That's not going to happen here.
And that's it's a big difference, because how are you going to get paid in a lesser currency and expect to make more? And your groceries, your rent, and everything is in dollars. It's in the greater currency.
Speaking of, can we about this, we've touched this topic with our other guests. Can we speak on exactly? We didn't actually touch on this. You actually mentioned price checking.
Yes.
Are the prices really being checked?
Yeah. I can tell you, for example, there's been different publications out there where we show the pictures of the inspectors in the supermarket, because I know some people are skeptical. One thing with supermarkets that I've noticed, when they get our first fine, they start to fall in line, because they don't want to then they know that the government is serious and in sticking to it. When there was the hurricane that was looking like it was coming to St.Maarten, I remember going to a supermarket and I saw a can of corned beef for like $5. I went online, there's a website, you can check the price control list and you can pull it up right away. And I saw, okay, no, Libby's cans maximum price is supposed to be $2.80.
Sorry, before you continue, can you say what was that website so everybody knows when you go and check that? Or do you have that available?
I would have to
Yeah,
look for it. I think it's FXM price something. Let me check here.
If even after this interview, if you could come back with that episode with that link to us, we'll be
Yes, for
highly
sure.
thankful. You know, we could also distribute that on
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
platform as
And
well.
I
All
try
the
to I post
supermarket
on
projects
Facebook and
like
stuff
this,
sometimes.
every
It's
last
a
one of
good
them. They
resource.
walk inside
Yeah,
like an inspector site,
I
like an inspector self.
go. Yeah, and go grab my shit. I know that in the name now, but that's why I'm gonna call it with my phone and start looking up like, hey, what's this?
What's
What's it?
this?
I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't even know St.Maarten had something like that.
Yeah, yeah, it does exist. The website is always updated based on the invoices that the supermarkets bring in. We then make the adjustment on the price control, and the website is there. And I love what you're saying because one of the difficulties we have in St. Maarten is enforcement. The public can help with enforcement. We have limits. Is over, I think, what, 300, 200 supermarkets in St. Maarten. If some people actually go in and say, hey, no, this is not supposed to be the price, like I did at that supermarket, he said, oh, what? Oh, no. Sorry, Mr. Bryson. I go on inside the computer, change it up, take off the paper. I was like, you're trying to think now. You think I catch you? Oh, because hurricane coming, everybody want canned food. You
That's
saying, let me make a little
wild.
killing there. I just make a joke with him because he got caught. He was trying to think, and I know the person personally. I was like, nah, but then I said, on a serious note, man, this is not good. You can't take advantage of people during this type of stuff. But then I also get the other side, which is, yeah, but it's been a rough year. And I say, yes, I get that. But we can't let the people suffer because of this type of situation. So having the access to the price control definitely helps. So more people, I think everybody should bookmark that thing. You go to the
Yeah,
supermarket and check it
yeah.
out.
Yeah,
I
That
know one
yeah.
supermarket. I
I
know
printing it. I printing it.
I could give them a free plug because I must say they on point when it comes to that is Triple D supermarket there going into Simpson Bay. There's a lot of other supermarkets that are very much on point with sticking to the price control. It still has its flaws, I will admit, because one of the things we need to work out now is that, uh, for example, a 5 pound bag of Robin Hood flour is price controlled, but then they might say, you know what happens if they buy a 50 kilo bag of Robin Hood flour, put it in a plastic bag, put Le Grand Marché or whatever on it, and then sell that instead? Might be a little loophole that is not really covered in the legislation. So we got to fix those type of things because we do see sometimes that you see like just bags of rice with no brand on it, which is also a problem because you have to look at the labeling laws. But honestly, that's far and few in between. Generally speaking, the price is still higher because we still get complaints because people ain't realize that what we did is prevent it from going up even higher. But the supermarkets have to bring a margin, and they show us those invoices and say, "Look, man, look at what we're paying for a bag of rice now." It used to be maybe $5 a kilo, but with everything happening around the world, the war in Ukraine has affected agriculture internationally. A lot of people don't realize Ukraine was actually one of the largest green exporters in the world. And that has affected the price of pasta, bread, green, all of these type of things globally, because although the world can still produce it, now other competitors realize, that cheap green that used to sell in Ukraine, now I can increase the price of my own because you can't get that cheap green in Ukraine anymore. So global prices are going up. There's a lot of shipping line issues around the world. So St. Maarten gets affected by that the most because we unfortunately don't grow enough of our own. That's something we're also working on. But what we did is prevented it from going up even higher. So you'll still hear the complaints. This is why price is expensive, and they're right. What I'm saying is that what we did prevented it from being even worse.
You mentioned a lot previously, which is about like dealing with tourism, trying to increase our tourism product and things like that. But you also, just like how you just mentioned, that St. Maarten doesn't grow its own produce. Well, it doesn't grow enough. They do have some farms popping up here and there that I know at least.
Yeah.
But what in combination can we do to not only move away a little bit from only tourism as a income generator, but what also innovative ways can we, or do you have up, or as government as a manifesto in in the coming future? Like, do you guys have any plans or any ideas of where we can go further for the future?
Yeah. Well, first of all, when it's strictly talking agriculture, I don't see it so much from the economic perspective, more from the food security perspective. Yes, it will cause some economic activity, but the goal there really have to be about allowing more production locally from in terms of food security and lowering the cost of food. I personally, I tell people all the time, St. Maarten, even if we tear down every hotel in St. Maarten and replace it with farms, you still would not be able to fully sustain St. Maarten in terms of food. I don't think we would have that amount of land. So we have limited land. We have a lot of hilly land. So there's certain things that can be grown on hills and certain things that need flat land. So what we want to do with agriculture is actually partner with a nearby country like St. Kitts that does have a lot of available land, that is willing to assign that land to St. Maarten for agriculture. And then we have our own local people have their farms right there. We establish shipping lines. And basically, it's like having territory on a very nearby island that is growing, that St. Maarten is growing for themselves for St. Maarten. We have to be very strategic with our land. We have housing issues in St. Maarten. We need to be cognizant of that. Yes, we need farms, but we also need more housing. So our idea for agriculture is to expand it as efficiently as possible locally, but then work with St. Kitts to actually grow some of our own produce there. In terms of economic
I have a question.
diversification, oh, yes. Tell me, bro.
Those modern
By his connection, terrible.
those modern ways of farming right now, where you farm high
Yeah, hydroponics.
Vertical farming as
now
well.
instead of just
Yeah,
using land. Yeah, that we would still
yes.
have we would have enough land and space to feed our people.
I think that's why I said for agriculture, I see it more as using the most efficient means. For example, hydroponics on hill works very well because then you can gravitize, make the use of gravity for the flow of water, the circulation of water. So if you have a tank up, the gravity can bring it down and then you can recirculate the irrigation system. So hydroponics can work very well for St. Maarten to make use of some of the hillside that we can make available for it. But I still think that there's a limit to how much of that we have to do. Because like I said, we do have to build housing. I estimate we need at least 1,200 more homes in St. Maarten. So I see agriculture more from kind of adding to our existing supply, which also keeps food prices down. So you will try to grow the most expensive produce here, which is mostly fruits and vegetables. You would focus on growing that. And then you would continue to maybe nearby, you can grow things like rice and grain and so on. But speaking of growing and economic diversification, we are 100% pro the legalization of marijuana. We actually put out a tender because that is quite a legislative project, not because you don't only have to change local laws, you also have to change certain international treaties that St. Maarten, by extension through the Netherlands, is party to that forbid the growth and sale of marijuana. So it's a whole legislative process. So we put out a terms of reference to get some companies. And a lot of people thought, oh, they want to just give local, a foreign company to grow. No, that's not the intention. The intention is to get a foreign expert that already is in the field internationally just to set up the structures for us. Our vision is that you have to be 100% local in order to participate in that industry, to be able to be a retailer. So that will be reserved for them. And I think that's going to be a huge economic pillar for St. Maarten because as a tourism destination and looking at it as it being tolerated in the Netherlands, it's going to be extremely attractive. I mean, you can imagine somebody coming off a cruise ship, sitting down on a beach chair, and instead of just spending $6 on a bucket of beers, maybe they're going to enjoy $20, $30 worth of marijuana, enjoy it responsibly, enjoy the sunset, and go back on their cruise as the happiest person ever. So I think that's going to be something that expands our economy. And then I think, and you kind of mentioned it before, I see great opportunities for St. Maarten in terms of blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. There's a lot that has to be done to get there, but we can't ignore the opportunities that St. Maarten could have by becoming a sort of technology hub because it's very land efficient. That's something we always have to remember. Whatever industry we want to bring here, we need to make it as efficient per square meter as possible. So these are digital companies that just need a little floor space or office space, but they pay license fees. The way we do the legislation, where as it being legal tender, that 1% fee can be collected from the cryptocurrency transactions that goes through our blockchain system. We can make use of it for cruise conversion, giving people a token in order to return. And I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff you can do there that can bring billions to the economy that otherwise would have never come. So I think those are the main three things that are quick wins. That if we push forward, then we would not have to be as tourism dependent. I do envision St.Maarten, at least for the next 20 to 30 years, always being, let's say, more than 50% dependent on tourism, because tourism, you've built so much for that industry. You can't move hotels. The hotels are there. So you maybe don't want to increase the number of rooms, but maybe the quality of rooms. So the industry will probably always be around, but we need to supplement that with those industries: agriculture, marijuana, and cryptocurrency and blockchain.
We have a good bit of questions about the cryptocurrency side, but there's something when it comes to the marijuana legislation that I always wondered. With us being tied, whether being before 10 or even with being a country within the Kingdom of the Netherlands, why is it that our marijuana laws are so different than the Netherlands, for example?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the legalization of marijuana is not done on a kingdom level in the Netherlands. So the way you have to see it is you have to see St. Maarten, Aruba, Curacao as countries that are part of a league. So let's say you have the Lakers, you have the Knicks, you have the Heat, and you have Orlando Magic. They're all part of the same league. There's a governing board that kind of dictates the general rules of the teams, but we really are still independent teams within the kingdom.
Okay.
There's certain things, I think it's basically comes down to four things that fall under the kingdom directly. So international treaties, defense, so the Marines, the Army, and so on, human rights and other things. But generally, the idea was that we would be able to create our own local legislation as individual countries. The Netherlands chose to do a sort of a gedoogbeleid, which is where it's not really legislated legally, so there's not a marijuana law in Holland. They just created policies to make it possible to be tolerated. So if St. Maarten would want to go in that direction, then St. Maarten would have to now create our own similar policies. In this day and age, though, the way the industry, because back then they did it when there was no industry for it, it was basically illegal everywhere else in the world. But now that the industry is becoming legal in other areas, doing it as a tolerance policy won't work for St. Maarten, because these other companies that import your product, that facilitate it and so on, they want to see actual legislation in order to be attracted to St. Maarten and help blossom your economy. So we would have to do a full legislation, whereas the Netherlands, over the many years that they've been legal, they've kind of found their own method of doing it in a very, like I say, it's strange, because it's like if I understand correctly how it is in the Netherlands, it's like you can grow it, but you're really supposed to sell it, and you can sell it, but you're really supposed to grow it, or it's very vague.
It's a lot of gray area. What it is technically, these are just the rules I know off the top of my head. Excuse me for sounding like a pothead. You're allowed to grow 5 plants. You're allowed to walk with 5 grams on you. Anything more than that, they see it as for distribution. So 5 grams can be considered as personal use, and holding the 5 grams on you is also like walking about the street. Is also considered as personal use. So now, if I understand you correctly, you basically saying that each island within the kingdom has to basically give its own laws.
Yeah.
And that also means that actively, whoever was in government throughout the past umpteen years have been actively going against this, regardless of the research that has been shown throughout the decades that is actually an economic booster.
Yeah.
So now My question is, and this also goes to another question I have, should not we be putting more emphasis on education first? Because okay, cool, you could pass the law to make marijuana legal and whatnot, but you still have that, if there's still that social stigma
Yeah.
attached to it, then it's not going to be as productive as or as effective as it would if the education was already in place.
Yeah. The thing is, the legislative trajectory is so long. Our plan is to do them parallel. So on the one hand, you're going to have your process where you're drafting all this legislation, you're setting up your systems and all of that. That's going to take maybe 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you start explaining to the public whether you got to do town hall meetings, Facebook, videos, and lectures, all of that stuff. You do them hand in hand, because what that also does for you, you get to hear the concerns of the community, and then you can adjust your legislation as you go. So maybe they realize, boy, you talk to some of the boys in the block that are doing it. Let's be real. It's happening in St.Maarten. And to pretend like marijuana isn't being sold in St.Maarten,
It's everywhere.
You're living under a rock.
It's practically like walking around in Amsterdam last time I was in SM.
Yeah, and we act, and the worst thing about it is that I heard a story of a guy that literally worked in a coffee shop in the Netherlands and then came to St.Maarten, had a hard time, was doing his thing, and for the same thing that he was doing legally in the Netherlands in a coffee shop, ended up in jail for marijuana. Like, why are we putting people in jail for marijuana? Like, that's crazy. It should not be the case. I know we have to do it responsibly. That's why we're saying, some people say, oh, just do a tolerance policy. No, that can also backfire on you. You don't want it to just roll it out and make it legal without understanding that there are some people that have issues with addiction, that have some people that can misuse anything. Just like you can misuse alcohol, you can misuse marijuana. So I would say alcohol is 100 times worse. But the fact is that you do have some people in Turning Point, for example, because of it. So you don't want to just snap your finger and legalize it. You want to put certain protections. You want to protect locals, because if you just tolerate it tomorrow. So what I mean, the big pharma can just come in here and say, well, since it's legal here now, we're going to set up what, without legislation, without having it in a law saying that you must have been a resident of St.Maarten for a minimum of 15 years in order to If some people for political gain was campaigning on it like that, and I'm like, guys, that's not realistic, because you're gonna backfire and you're gonna actually get the boys in the block mad at you, because now you taking bread out of their mouth to have some big pharma company from Colorado come in and be the ones that are actually reselling to customers. If we choose to bring in someone like that to help with the technical expertise to set up greenhouses and that type of thing, okay, fine. But it should ultimately be only local people in the industry. So that's why you need legislation. You got to really set that thing up very carefully to not let it backfire on your own community. And that's why I say, like, the legislative trajectory has to go hand in hand with consulting with your people and informing your people, because guess what? We got a lot of experts on the industry walking around here. Who is me to just bring a law and pass it and not hear from the people who have already been in the industry, albeit unfortunately illegally? But the fact is, they are there, they have knowledge, they know what the tourists want, they know what locals want, they know what you have to be careful with in terms of the quality of it. We see what is happening in some places that have made it legal, where unfortunately some of the dealers have been handling fentanyl at the same time as marijuana, and some people are now ending up getting laced marijuana, although it wasn't maybe the intention of the dealer, but because they're handling it intermixed, some people are getting fentanyl overdoses from marijuana. So the safety of it, all of that stuff has to be taken into account. And I think the way we're doing it is a very responsible way.
And how do you foresee it being established in St.Maarten? Do you see it as a Holland type something where it's coffee shops and it's just spread out throughout the island, or do you guys envision another way, because we're more of a smaller community and they would be a lot of, how to say, pushback when it comes to people smoke? Like, do we smoke in open areas? Are there specific designated areas to smoke in? Can we just roll up at any beach and light up a joint? Like, without going too much in the details, do you guys have a little bit of a process of a system in place, or have one in that you would be putting in place?
Well, I would say definitely, because at the same time, as excited as us in this room might be excited about it, we have to recognize that there's some people that don't like it, don't like the
Yep,
smell of it, don't want to be around
exactly.
it. So I do think we have to respect everybody's wishes and make sure that there's, if let's say, like I said, I think it would be a great experience for a tourist or a local to be able to smoke on the beach, but then there should be a specific section for something like that. I don't think that we should just ignore that aspect of it. We have to respect everybody's
Yep,
position on that. So I think we shouldn't have it that anybody can just anywhere smoke. I do think the coffee shop system, it's a good system also administratively. So you understand that there's a central place, even if it's a local person, even if it's just a vending permit, but there's an address where the product is being grown or delivered, because that also helps you to track it for safety purposes, for
exactly.
tax purposes. So I do like the sort of coffee shop system. I think that's something that we should also do. But yeah, I don't think you should just allow it to be smoked in any areas. We have to put, that will be part of the legislation as well,
Yeah,
and also part of the consultation to hear from the public, that listen, this is what we think is acceptable. If this side of Mullet Beach over there, there's a few beach chairs where they can do it, but the people that with their family and their kids want to stay far from that, then we have to take that
exactly.
into account
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. I have one. Oh yeah, go through, Lumber.
I have a quick question before we proceed, right?
Yeah.
Choke, the interview so far, we mentioned a lot about
Government.
having
No,
foreign people. What is it?
sorry, Lumber. Go through.
Okay. We talk about having like foreign people come to invest and bringing in different companies and such, right? But we have a lot of islands and also some of the neighboring islands that none of these foreign companies could just come in here and do business without a local being 50% partner, in something like that, to help protect the local and all these kind of whatnots and make sure the business go, more towards the interest of the people and not just solely an opportunity for the investor. Do we have something like that in place here, or is it something that we're going to consider start doing here? To kind of help and push. I think a lot of the money that should stay here now to the next level, because a lot of the money that's being made don't really stay here. We have these giant hotels and all these big businesses, and majority of the money does go away. Not much of it to stay here. So, I want to know if we have anything like that in the planning for
Yes,
here locally.
definitely. And I'll tell you the first step on that question, and I don't know if everybody takes this part into account. Um, Legally speaking, how do you define a local?
Ha!
We've had that conversation here so many times you wouldn't believe.
We
You know,
still
but
we
but
still don't
That
have an
but
conversation is a
but,
conversation
but
I have
ultimately,
every day, and we got to define it.
look, but
You have to define
ultimately,
local.
we have come to somewhat of a consensus where we say, well, okay, look, we need to set what is a baseline for somebody that could how you say come in and making to be considered a local, and them kind of vibes. You have to set that baseline first, and
Correct.
then we have to work from there. I know it is a long process to really sit down and decide, well, hey, he's a local because this, but he's not a local, because when all of we pull out the same passport, or all of we been living here for up to the amount of years, or who born here, who ain't born here, who born outside and come back, all these kind of things. So I think we just need to take the time to really define it. How and
Yeah.
what defines it, I don't know. I guess that you guys got to do that in the background. But I think that is definitely something where keeping the money here is concerned. We need to look into, because we're missing out on a lot of money with the money that's leaving the island, because these companies' home base or headquarters or wherever is not here.
Yeah. So that's why I bring that up, because I'm happy to hear you guys have had that discussion, and I find every time I've tried to bring this to the forefront in Parliament, what I detect is that nobody else want to have that discussion, and it's because it's like you're afraid that you're leaving somebody out.
As it
You know that
exactly.
that
Yep.
that you know what I a politician, and if I come up with a definition that this is what local is, well then am I excluding one of my voters? So we brought it up in a parliament meeting. I was the only one that said, well, you know what? This is what I propose. We have to man up and deal with that, because what keeps happening is that we use the term local very colloquially. You know, we'll throw the word around. But now it's going to come to a point where, like what you said, I would love to bring a legislation that says, in order for somebody that is non-local to open a company, they must use a local. But in the law, you're going to have to define that. And I think it's time we do. The way I found a sort of a solution that eases the concerns of those who feel about whether you're left out or not, I think, and not just define local, I think you have to define a St.Maartener. So you come up with the criteria. And I've looked at the historical facts of when St.Maarten really had its first base of immigrants that came in and established St.Maarten as their home, because we can't go back indigenously, because then we're talking Arawaks and Caribs, and they are no longer here. So the next persons you have to look at is descendants of slaves. Then you also have the group that came within the 50s and 60s when St.Maarten was in nothing, but decided against all odds, I go make this my home. Somewhere along there, you define St.Maartener. But then what you do is you create a status called the belonger. That is something that in the British countries they have. So Anguilla, St. Lucia, and so on. You have a belonger, which is very close to the status of St.Maartener, but it is somebody that has established himself, let's say, for 15 years. They've consistently paid taxes. They have gone through our educational system. You can have a very good criteria to now have a belonger that is sufficiently tied to St.Maarten, and then you can have non-local. You have to define all three, because you're such a multicultural country. I don't think it can be St.Maarten and non-Maarten. You need an in-between, and the in-between is the belonger. So that now, if I pass that legislation and I define the three, now we could say business person that is the non-local, you have to work with either a St.Maartener, and these are the benefits you get, but you could also work with a belonger, but you won't get, let's say, the extent of the benefits, let's say tax benefits and so on, that you would if you had worked with a St.Maartener. That's really, and that's something we have in our manifesto that nobody wants to touch. But, you know, my mother is Colombian. She came here with her grandmother as an immigrant back in the 60s. My father was born in Aruba, you know, and I'm born here. I don't believe that makes me any less of a St.Maartener. But there's many people in St.Maarten that all of us have family from all around the world. None of us want to not feel like we belong. So at the very least, you have to be able to make your public and your people in a multicultural society feel like they belong. And that's the power of the belonger status alongside the indigenous St.Maartener. And then we can go into the legislation. Oh, but to answer your question, specifically what we've done, one of the key things every business needs in order to come to St.Maarten is a bank account. And that was my first step in making sure that foreign investors that want to do work in St.Maarten, I mentioned earlier that that local, so St.Maarteners, which I do define in the law, that you have a criteria for a managing director to qualify for this automatic bank account. You have to have a managing director that fits that local criteria. So what's that going to do is going to give an advantage to an investor that wants to come to St.Maarten to hire their managing director or have a 50% shareholder partner that is local. Because if not, you want to go through that 6-8 month long process, you go ahead with that. Or you could get your bank account in 5 days, but either your partner is 50% local or your managing director is local. And that is going to create, I think, like a whole new industry, like what you have in the Bahamas, because they have that rule where a foreign investor must, in most cases, be 50% partner with a local. Some of them are active in the company. Some of them are just paid as a director in order to have the benefits to be able to come into the country. So imagine now you have 1,000 new companies that set up in St.Maarten. That's 1,000 new directors you just create in your country, because they all want bank accounts.
Okay.
Sign up.
So You haven't. I have another
Fellas, you
question.
guys mind
You
if I
have a.
moving around because I gotta go into my vehicle. I'm enjoying the chat, but I'm gonna have to head into the car while we talk. Is that okay?
No, that's all
Yeah,
good,
sure,
man.
sure.
That's all good.
All right, cool.
I actually was gonna ask, do you have a hard stop after the 2 hours? Can then I know
No,
how
no hard
to.
stop. Just that I have to. You're gonna see me moving around a bit, getting ready to go in the car.
Oh yeah, man, no, man, that cool with us.
All right,
Simon,
cool.
what you were saying there?
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you have any follow up questions of what he said because you have something else I want to ask.
No, yeah, I have something. I have a selfish question I want to ask. So
All right.
that's actually go you go you first, Simon.
Okay. So my question to you is, what do you say about everybody's criticism, everybody in St.Maarten's criticism towards the difficulties of a local person owning a business in St.Maarten?
I would say that predominantly they're right. Um, First of all, it's the process is too hard to apply for a business license. So that's something that we've been fixing. And again, come back to the old laws where I believe the business license ordinance is from 1972. That was the last time I got an update. Now you can imagine in 1972, how many businesses you had in St. Maarten, or how many locals you had interested in setting up a business. Probably none. So they create this long process where you got to apply for this and send in that. And then, for example, you have a business, you want to open a restaurant, you have to have a business license and an operational permit. Makes absolutely no sense. But those things are in the law. So now, if you, a civil servant, sometimes I feel bad for them that they want to help this local apply for it, and they have to put them through this process because the civil servants can't work around the law. They have to work based on what the rules say. So we need to change that. And also, there's not enough in terms of supporting qualified businesses to get investment, to get grants and loans. In St. Maarten, the banks have basically become vaults. They really don't give a damn about helping a local set up a business. If you want to get a car, no problem. You want to have a credit card, maybe. But you rarely see local people being able to go to the commercial banks and get loans for business because I have come to the conclusion that the only interest the banking sector have in St. Maarten is just to have billions of dollars safely within a Caribbean territory that is still part of the Dutch state. Because when you look at their books, you see how overliquid they are. You see that they keep downsizing the amount of employees and so on. The amount of loans that they give is less and less. They have money from some corporate clients in St. Maarten and around the world that all they care about is we just need to keep that money in a safe place outside of the States, outside of Latin America, in a safe place that is covered by the Dutch state. So that has caused a problem where it's very difficult for St. Maarten people to get loans. So we started a credits program, which has been going very well. I know a lot of people personally who have gotten through with that, but I don't think that goes far enough. So one of the things we want to do, and where a lot of locals lose out, is on infrastructural projects. You see, for example, the airport. Everybody looked at this, oh, we get 500 million from Holland. More than half of that money that came in from Holland went right back to Holland. Why? Ballast Nedam, Dutch company, got the contract. Coal got the contract to fix the lagoons, 20-something million. This other Dutch company got this other Dutch company got that. And the main reason is not that you don't have qualified locals that could have done it. The main reason is that you had qualified locals that could have done it that don't have the financial injection to be able to buy the equipment they need, to be able to sustain themselves for the first few months. So what we want to do is, in a long story short, strategically put all of the funds that we want for infrastructural projects in one entity. Let's say that brings in $10 million a month, a year. Finance that, get a financer like APS or SFV to give us that 10 years in one shot, 100 million. And that $100 million will do 80 million in infrastructural projects, so fix roads, fix schools, fix this, fix that. But 20 million would be reserved to get qualified local companies that qualify based on experience, based on the proposal that they put in. But the one thing they lack is funding and equipment. When you award them the contract, let's say for $5 million, you also award them a loan of $1 million to be able to get the equipment they need. And now what you're doing is that you're building local companies to get into the industry. You don't have to keep bringing in these foreign contractors and foreign companies to be coming in, because A big part of your economy is having a strong construction sector, because that really branches out into other sectors. A lot of jobs, a lot of industry. Accountants make money, lawyers make money, the warehouses make money. The people that serve in the canteen, set up a little truck where you're selling Johnny cake and cheese to 200 construction workers every day. You're making bank. But it starts by us injecting money into our local companies, and they from there kind of spread that wealth throughout the economy. So that's what we call the Build Back St.Maarten plan. And it's very realistic. We worked it all out. It can be done, and it will be done.
Now, continuing on your whole Build Back St.Maarten plan. Seeing that how resilient St.Maarten is, don't you think that it should be more of a focus on trade crafts, and sending our young people and our students to do more trade crafts than the more academic route?
I think so, for sure. 1 second there, guys.
Yeah, no
Had
problem.
to say goodbye to the wifey. Hey, babe.
Yeah.
I think the training aspect, hey, you're getting behind the scenes, Rolando Brison. The trade aspect is also important, and even then, what we can plan this so easily, because when a construction project comes to St.Maarten, we know how much foreign labor coming. Why? Because we still have to give them work permits. So what's supposed to happen is that if we really can't find a local tiler that has experience in marble floor, something specific like that, we know that this project is going to be here for 3 years. We give him a 3-year work permit. Immediately at that point, we're supposed to be finding a local to go through that same training program through 3 years. So now when that person work permit expires and another project comes in and they say, hey, I need a marble tiling expert, guess what? No problem. We just trained somebody for that. Here's his number. Here's his resume. Go ahead. We're not giving you a work permit for that person because we have already trained it. There's a disconnect between the labor ministry, which is our ministry, and the education ministry, which did fall with another minister. And I think there was too much disconnect in connecting those two. Education and labor have to be very, very closely tied together. We have to make sure that whenever a work permit is given, we immediately inform the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Education immediately begins seeking people to step into those positions. And we have the local talent. We have
I was waiting for that. Coming out of the Wi-Fi and then connect. Yeah.
I think he still think he talking to you.
Yeah.
Something that also has to be done.
There we go. Rolando, we missed the end of that whole thing.
Was he gone?
He gone now.
Hey, he last long.
I think he's.
Yeah, he got strong rotor. He back.
Hey guys, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
There we go.
Hey, you got me now?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. So just to summarize, like I was saying, we have not properly connected the local talent with the needs of the workforce. Like I mentioned earlier, a person, if they know, I give the example of a tiling expert, marble floor tiling, maybe there's somebody working in St.Maarten that has worked in a construction company laying down different tiles. Marble tiling is a very specific expertise that maybe that person don't have that training, but we can find them, we can train them, you see, but we have not connected them. So that is one of the things we want to do. We want to connect the labor ministry with the education ministry much closer in our future government.
We see, but that's one of the issues with SM as well. We have the talent, we just don't have the organization.
Yeah, totally right. I agree with you fully on that.
But I see in your mobile and stuff like that. I want to ask one selfish question, and then we're gonna leave you go.
Okay, sure.
What going on with VXG? Is there any way for that to come back?
Question.
Is there something we could put together? Do we need to do a GoFundMe? Like how we bring that back?
We're actually working on it. We have a group of gamers. I felt like we needed to get them to step up. You know, people like Emran and all those boys, they're still there. And I do every Monday, we do some casual gaming to get people back on board. I passed a motion in Parliament recognizing we're actually one of the first parliaments in the world to recognize esports as a legitimate form of sports. So that is very good. And that kind of set the stage for what we have to do uh, in terms of really promoting esports as a sport. That's the next step that we got.
So, do you guys already have somewhat
He
of
will
a
come.
plan?
I think. Well,
We can't hear you.
On mute.
No, I think he connected the Bluetooth there in the car.
Oh,
We gotta give some time. Give some time. We'll catch it to him.
I just hate when that shit happens. I ain't gonna lie, bro.
Right. And just the question I really
Justin, your
want to hear.
question.
That's the question I really want to hear about.
After your selfishness.
The internet don't want to promote your nonsense, bro.
okay.
Okay, he back.
Okay, you back? We back?
Yeah, he's back.
Okay.
I missed the joke. You can't let me miss the joke. What was the joke?
I was saying how do we get? No, they were saying that the internet don't want to hear my nonsense. As I was saying, as soon as I asked myself this question, your connection went alright. But how do we? So there is something in place to have to get back.
Yes. So on Parliament End, what I did is I passed a motion to recognize esports as a form of sports. The reason that's important is that one of the big challenges I had with VXG, and now that I think about it, that was another reason I wanted to get into politics, is that government never really looked at esports as anything significant, you know. So now that the parliament has officially recognized esports, now you have a realistic way to bring it funding for government to support such events. So that baseline has been covered. Now it's really just about kind of getting the grassroots gamers back on board and getting them excited about a VXG event. We think we want to do one next year in July. I've already been talking to some of the international partners that are interested in coming back to St.Maarten. St.Maarten is a unique place for it because they see it as a vacation and a tournament. To this day, I have gamers that contact me like, man, I want to come to St.Maarten. I had someone that came here on his honeymoon. Maximilian came. We got Perfect Legend that has come back before. Different guys actually come back because they had such a good experience way back then. They never gonna forget St.Maarten, you know. And it's a way to boost tourism. And yeah, definitely esports. We're the perfect location for it. We're close enough to the US. Um, we have the hotels. We can do it in the low season, which is the gaming season is normally in the summer. So now you can attract tourists to the island during the summer period, which is normally a little slower. So definitely, I'm on that.
Okay, well, I gonna say this on my behalf. If there's anything I personally could do or Drinks with the Fellas could do to help facilitate, promote or anything, we definitely down for that because I definitely feel that that's something that is needed. Granted, yes, the traditional sports and arts that needs the support as well. But we have a lot of geeks and nerds that in the basement and in the bedroom that also could do well for St.Maarten and for themselves as well. That deserve that recognition. Again, St.Maarten has the talent. We just don't have the organization.
Yes. So right now they're busy in the group chat that we have with different gamers. There's about a good 100 of them there. I told them, I would personally sponsor the cost of incorporating an association. I've already done that. They're busy selecting which members would be part of the board, so that we have an official esports association. The grassroots is moving. The guys every month I actually do an event. I call it Soggy Sunday. You remember how we used to do Soggy Sunday when I brought that back?
Okay.
Every last Sunday of the month, there's a $500 prize. It's free entry because I just want as many people to come as possible. to kind of spark that competitive spirit leading into August next year, because we do want to do an event basically like right after Evo and right after DreamHack. That's a good time to do it because there's a lull in tournaments, and at that point these guys have already competed, and now they're like looking for a vacation. So it's like, okay, I could go there on vacation and compete while I'm there.
Yep.
So August is the end of July, early August is the perfect time to do it, and it's also a slow season, so the hotels are not as expensive.
Yep. Okay, well, again, if there's anything we could do with Drinks for the Fellas to help to facilitate that, or even help in any promotion, any type of way, just reach out, let us know. We'll be definitely willing to help out on that end.
Awesome. Well, I'll put you in contact with some of the guys, Emran, Earl Evans, Darren. Some of these guys, they're the main guys behind it. I tend to just support them and give them the ideas on what to do. But I'll have them get in touch with you for sure.
Yeah, man. No, I can definitely reach out to Emran for sure. We still got that connect, so I can definitely do that. But Rolando, seeing as you're on the move, and we all know how St.Maarten connection is, we going to leave you go. Good luck with your campaigning. Again, we'd like to thank you very much for taking your time out and sitting down with us and answering our questions. You're welcome back anytime, whether it's to push something else or explain or whatever the case is. You're more than welcome to come back on Drinks with the Fellas and with anything you want to let the public know.
Awesome, man. Thank you guys. It was very fun being here. And also, like, if you have other guests on or whatever, and you ever have any questions that you need clarity on, bust me a WhatsApp, a message, or whatever. And I'm always there because I love giving people information. One of the things I did, I started a weekly radio program about 2 weeks ago, and I realized how hungry for information the public is to understand our processes and what we're doing to fix it. So I'm always here for you guys, even if it's a WhatsApp away, you need information, I'm happy to provide it.
Be careful what you say. We might just hold you to it.
No problem, man. That's my job.
All right. But again, Rolando, thank you very much for kicking it with us, and good luck with your campaigning.
Thank you very much, guys. Y'all enjoy.
All right. Be safe. Eyes on the road.
All right.
All right. Folks, y'all want to give a small recap how we talked about that? Informative. I find it was informative.
It was informative, yeah. I had a couple more questions.
But yeah, there's a lot of shit I didn't get to go into either. But we could always have him back on. If y'all have any follow-up questions or anything else y'all want to ask, let us know. Lumbo, you're smoking over there. Why are you smoking over there?
I'm listening to her. What happened? And I had a few more questions that came to me during the whole but we had the time to get into everything.
You see
even if we had even if we had gone all the way through to like 3 hours, I don't think all 3 of us would have gotten everything out. Because some of my questions came based on certain things you were saying. Like the one about keeping money. Like the one about keeping money here.
Blockchain properly thing either. I had a good bit of questions from.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like maybe I guess another time.
I'll go ask him straight away. Like if that's the case, if having a business license is so hard for locals, what's the difference between a local and all these Chinese restaurants, Chinese shops, Indian stores?
Actually, if I understand, I could be like grossly misquoting this whole situation here. But as far as I know, for certain businesses, if you're a local, you don't really need a business license. I think it depends what you're doing.
That we would have to look up and not just say take.
I think it depends.
I forget that. What's up? This man asking for that price. That price.
Yeah. That was the most informative thing to me, at least.
Let me tell you something. The supermarket is going to again, and I'm going to talk real how you say, like medieval times. They're going to rue the day that I get hold of that fucking list. Okay, they're going to rue the day, bro. They say to me, "St.Maarten that."
something I forget to ask one follow-up question was how user friendly is it? Lumber, you're gonna have to leave us know on
Yeah,
that
for
end
sure.
because
I can go
it's
through it
cool to have it. It's
and
cool to
and
have
like
it, but if it's a pain in the ass for me to upload a picture, or if it's a whole process for me to report wherever the prices is, St.Maarten people they ain't gonna do it. They gonna just sit down there and complain more.
yo, look now, look. We have even if you can't upload it, we got a very powerful tool as the fucking social media, bro. You just need to
Yeah.
go, and especially if you're talking about high prices, that all you need to go on Facebook. Anybody go on Facebook, even if you ain't got no friends on Facebook, and type in prices and say Martin high. 1,000 comments that within the hour G. Okay. Now if you could do that with a picture, dog, even worse, everybody going, and then they're going to start putting all the other supermarkets on blast in the comment section, G. You
Yeah.
check? And all you gotta do is as a good citizen, just go and tag these MPs and these people them, and they're going to pass on the word, G. You do that once a week. Once a week, that these supermarkets, man, put a hit on you. Once
Hey,
a
but
week,
Kana, you
dog.
want to go into that? You want to go into that topic we want to go into before Rolando come in?
No.
No, you don't.
No. To be quite honest with you, no. I think we could
You
cut
had
this. I
start,
think
you had start the day, you had start the episode with a lot of hostility there. So I thought,
yeah,
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
calm down. All that
Yo,
Yeah, oh,
calm
okay. The fire gone out.
down. Yeah. That it was a long conversation.
So we're going to then say, oh, I don't go into no topic at all, or
It's are you? Let me put it this way: it's
what
are
I
you
want to do, what I want to do is first and foremost, before we decide we're going to leave us there, I want to thank everybody for joining. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Specifically, like, subscribe specifically to, and share specifically. All them specifically. I want y'all to do all of those things. And check it out. Y'all could have been anywhere. Y'all choose just to keep engaging in this highly verbal conversation we was having just now. That was a lot to take in.
Yeah.
He was saying he was talking some shit there, especially with like the bargaining
Hyperverbal,
process.
very
And I was
hyperverbal.
like trying to follow just to ask follow-up questions, and he was losing me a lot of the places. I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't know if I ain't focused or I need like a refresher or anything, because I used to know all of this shit, but he was definitely losing me. I ain't even go front.
But you gotta just rewatch it, man. Just rewatch it, man.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. But topic wise, I have anything specifically I wanted to go into because I talked out. I didn't even go front.
I
Oh yeah.
I want to tell the people them
Mm.
what you was gonna say.
No. This is me signing out. So
Oh, I want to tell the people them about what I got in store for them next year summertime.
yeah.
So everybody could start planning the vacations accordingly.
Yeah. We can bring that up yet. So what we have, the idea is we want to have drinks with the fellas like live or meet up. We're gonna have Sino and I in person, and then we're gonna have Lumber on camera.
Yeah. So
So
we're gonna be streaming.
it's just to have a conversation in person. If we proposing the idea to see if people would fuck with it or not. If y'all like the idea, then we'll go ahead and plan it and organize it. We also have a plan to make it like a networking something, so it's just not us. Y'all come in Amsterdam or wherever we plan to organize it to listen to us talk shit. It's also a networking event. Y'all could share businesses, share ideas, all kind of shit like that. Kind of build like a small drinks with a fellow community.
Yeah,
So
we are.
those are we have planned.
Yeah,
I missing
trying to
anything?
have some DJs in place too. DJ Bean, big up yourself.
Yes. We gonna have all like drinks and food and entertainment and stuff like that. If we decide to go through with it, we gonna have locally made food, local as in St.Maarten people, not Dutch people. Either island made. The food gonna be island catered. We not trying to have bitter ballon and cast bloches and shit like that. So it's going to be Caribbean catered. And then music, hopefully we could get through with fiber and stuff like that. So we have a whole thing planned, but it don't make sense to do it if like nobody gonna come or if y'all ain't
Yeah.
interested and stuff like
So
that.
only like how the bearders say, only you can stop forest fires. You know, only you can make this possible. Okay, we're doing this for you.
By stupid. So yeah, if y'all like the idea and would come true, let us know. So yeah, we have that idea floating around. Anything else? I ain't gonna lie, I talked out, fellas. I can't.
All right. Yeah, c'est bon. That cool, man. We call that day.
You look drained, my guy.
It was a struggle to keep up. Okay, I have never claimed to be a journalist or intellectual. I have intellect, but I have not intellect. See what I mean? See what I mean? You see?
Yeah. Listen, earlier, like right before the end there, when you was talking about the gaming, you had say felicitate instead of facilitate.
See what I mean?
And
I know.
I almost died. I almost died, you know, but my back was to me, so I can't laugh too hard, you know what I mean? But I almost died, dog. I almost died.
I was really hoping nobody had kept on to that. No. But
I was like,
anyway, thank you for sticking through this. We going to post that once we get that price link from Rolando. We're going to post that up on the Drinks with the Fellows IG page as well, because that's also important information.
We're gonna spam it across all our, including the page itself, social media. So nobody don't have no excuse to don't have it.
Yeah, we also I'm gonna put it once we get it, we're gonna put it in the description of this episode as well. So when you see it, we're going back, you can have the reference one time. Again, thanks you. Now you come. Now you come, Lee. Now and you is Yusuf I was looking for in the comments the whole time.
Yeah, I sent her the link like a book hour and a half ago.
But
wow.
Like I said, people, thank you for coming through. If y'all enjoy this content or enjoy these kind of
okay.
Yeah, she was too high class for us. Anyway, if y'all enjoy these type of interviews and these type of episodes and stuff like that, let us know, and then we could continue, not just during election times, but throughout the period, throughout the year. We have that idea for the summer coming up for the link up with the fellows live. Leave us know if you're interested in it. And yeah, I'm done. I'm gonna have CCR you next time. Later.
Later.